pressuring the FBI leadership, trying to push them aside because he's worried about what they may have on him. Adam Schiff, who has been, frankly, on TV beating up on the president more than he's been behind closed doors working on these big issues, tweeted, FBI would set a dangerous precedent if it forced out dedicated career public servants in capitulation to Trump and White House pressure. President has already removed one top FBI leader, Comey, over Russia. McCabe would be another.
That's right. Schiff has also come down hard on Republicans as well, just in general, talking about this idea about pressure happening in Washington and the political ramifications.
You know, you talk about Democrats and their talking points. So, of course, I opened up the failing New York Times this morning to see in the print edition where they would talk about this. Nowhere in the print edition. So you have to go online where Adam Goldman, if you read Adam Goldman's Twitter feed, by the way, a so-called journalist, it leads like a left-wing missives, but I'm remiss. He talked about how highly intelligent, intelligent Andrew McCabe is, how he's beyond reproach, and he's got universal respect for standing up against Trump. Listen, I'm sure this guy's done a lot of good things in the FBI, but if ultimately he was part of, and we've got other names of where this FBI shakeup is coming from, if he was part of that, then places like the New York Times should be treating it for what it could be, as opposed to burying it online.
And the Democrats are trying to say it's about politics. I want to explain that, but first the shakeup. James Comey, fired by the president. We'll get into that. Andrew McCabe, reportedly retiring. General Counsel James Baker reassigned. Peter Strzok reassigned. After the text messages, reassigned where? To Human Resources Department. That's a little odd, number one. But number two, James Baker, the general counsel, he's been accused of leaking details from the dirty dossier, the unverified information about the president that was then weaponized for these investigations. Here's why it matters. The FBI is supposed to be non-political. It's supposed to be fighting crime, making sure that we're safe. And by the way, there are hundreds, there are thousands of FBI agents, officials who protect us, who are working on counter-terror as we speak, not just around Christmas and New Year's here in New York City, all around the country, all around the world. They're dedicated public servants. This is not about them. This is about the leaders from James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and others who clearly were involved in partisan politics. Andrew McCabe, in addition to his wife getting all this money from McAuliffe in this race, he was using, allegedly, his FBI official email account to promote her campaign. You obviously cannot do that. And these were the people who were investigating Hillary Clinton.
And when you talk about the reshuffling, James Baker, that is potentially a big deal. This is the general counsel who would be read in on all of these investigations. So for him to be moved, I mean, this is really a significant person at the FBI and someone who was brought in by James Comey.
And this isn't done. I mean, Andrew Weissman, who went to the Hillary Clinton victory party that ended up being a defeat party, is still the number 2 of the special counsel
of the Bob Mueller
of the Bob Mueller so-called investigation, which the president calls a witch hunt. I mean, you talked about Andrew McCabe. A photo surfaced as well of him in a campaign T-shirt for his wife. Listen, his wife's running. I get it. You're going to support your wife no matter what. But the idea of where this money is coming from, and it's so directly coming from the Clintons, while he's supposed to be investigating the Clintons,
or at least people close to the Clintons,
it just doesn't look good. And what you talked about, Ed, is so right. We have to remember how many great and faithful servants there are at the FBI who do so much work. But you know what I think a lot of Americans feel like? We're finally draining the FBI swamp. Not at the bottom, but at the top, so that those officials doing the great work are doing it in a way that is totally nonpartisan. And it's draining itself at this point. They're retiring because the truth is likely coming out.
The Democrats are trying to say they're retiring because they're getting pushed out under pressure from the president. Or are they getting out because they know a lot more is coming?
But wait, there's more news. Turning now to your headlines. The Department of Homeland Security is now calling a shooting spree against Pennsylvania officers a terror attack. This as they confirm chain migration let that suspect into the country. Egyptian national Ahmed Amin Al-Mafdi, who arrived here on a family visa, was shot dead by police after injuring a state trooper in a gunfight Friday. His family telling ABC News that he was, quote, a chicken, but not a terrorist.
What?
Right. Earlier this month, another man who came into the U.S. through chain migration tried to set off a bomb in the New York City subway. A federal judge partially lifting President Trump's refugee ban. The decision opening the door for spouses and children of immigrants already in the country. The judge says it restores the refugee program to where it was before the president's new directive in October, requiring, quote, extreme vetting of refugees from 11 predominantly Muslim countries. And the Marines' top general, Robert Neller, now telling hundreds of Marines in Norway there's a war coming. According to military.com, he's predicting Russia or the Pacific to be the focus of any upcoming conflict. This, as North Korea calls the UN's latest sanctions, quote, an act of war. The Rogue Nation threatening to punish those who supported it. The Auburn Tigers getting into the Christmas spirit as they prepare for the Peach Bowl on New Year's Day against Central Florida. Take a listen. Come on, that is really not bad. Members of the Auburn University football team belting out Silent Night during the team meeting. An assistant coach tweeting this video covering the popular Temptations version of the iconic song. They actually sound pretty good.
They do the least silent rendition of Silent Night I've ever heard. Well done.
They're bringing it.
They hit the high note really well.
They really did,
I was like, wow. That was
Some good falsetto.
Somebody can really sing there, yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. Now, Spotify just came out. They revealed the most streamed holiday songs. And All I Want for Christmas Is You is at the top of the list. So we're trying to figure out what's at the top of your list. Here it is. It's good.
That's a great one.
I mean, come on. Gets you in the mood no matter what.
I'm a big fan of George Strait's Christmas Cookies song, a little more modern,
I don't really know that song.
Oh my goodness, it's the best.
Do we have it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
We got an ad of that?
Wait for it.
Christmas cookies, babe.
Yeah.
The ones that look like Santa
Little Bob.
Claus, Christmas trees
dad's
and bells and stars.
Does this feel like Christmas to you?
Like those Christmas cookies.
It doesn't. That's a good point.
It's a good song, but
Now those sprinkly
It doesn't feel like Christmas, it's about Christmas cookies.
I should have come up with a
Nothing says
fun
Christmas
one.
like Christmas
I went
cookies.
traditional. Here's my favorite. Can we hear it?
Oh, come, let us
Can't beat it.
adore
That's my favorite.
him.
who's singing this version?
Oh,
of it?
come,
I
let
don't know.
us.
I don't know. Do we have that little white box? Can we put it in the little white box? It's supposed to be right here? No, here. We don't know, but I agree. It's a classic. I've got one. I don't know if it's classic or not, but I love Aaron Neville with The Fire of a Thousand Suns. And this is his song, Please Come Home for Christmas. I just think he's come home for Christmas.
Oh, he makes it. He makes it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God!
I kind of got the Aaron Neville down a little
Got
bit.
it. That was
I don't know. I love him.
amazing.
I can't help it.
Was it? Were you thrilled when you started working here and his sister worked here?
Of course, I haven't yet.
I was going to say,
really
oh
why
my
I work
God,
here,
you're
but I haven't.
Aaron
Yeah,
Neville's sister.
I love it. I love it.
She's good in her own right. By the way.
Indeed. How about you, Rick? What do you got?
So mine is you can't even find mine. It's just a video of it, and I found this a few years ago. At time
I remember this. We did this a couple years ago,
obsessed
too.
with this song.
Where'd you
It's
find
not,
it?
it's not a real song.
It was when the Orange is the New Black, the TV show, first came out, and a couple of the stars from that show did this. They're not going to show the video of it. The video, it's awesome. It's a little Christmas medley that
You can't beat a medley. There's something in a medley for everybody.
I know.
It plays in department stores everywhere.
Does it?
I don't know.
I'm never in a department store.
So, what is your favorite? Friends at FoxNews.com. We're going to keep weaving it in throughout the show. We got a few more hours to go.
Oh, my goodness. We have 2 hours and 47 minutes left for plenty of Christmas music.
And I'm so glad that mine was last because it's still playing.
Yeah.
Right. You got the longest play.
Yeah, we got all
Rick
three
always
songs
puts
built
his
in.
hand on the scale. All right. President Trump delivering that big, beautiful tax cut for Christmas. What deal will he close on next? We'll ask Mark Lotter, the former press secretary for Vice President Mike Pence, next.
Plus, 'tis the season for family Christmas photos, like this one from our viewer, Michelle. Oh, you can't beat the ones with the kids. Kurt and Cyber Guy will show us just how to use your smartphone to get the perfect picture, even if kids are in it. 'cause sometimes
This is
they
not
get
a real
photos.
song. Wait.
Coming up.
This is still yours?
That's cool.
Santa gave you that?
Santa brought
Still
it.
have it?
Yeah. No.
That was
taken on the
probably not
smartphone.
taken with a smartphone. That's just what I was going to say. But you will use your smartphone nowadays to take those perfect pictures.
That's right. Let's ask Kurt, the cyber guy, for the tips so that we get the pictures that we can show in the future on television.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Merry
morning.
Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas
this
to
is
you.
Thank you. This is the time you're hanging out at home, and you take your holiday pictures. You take pictures around the tree. You take pictures at the dinner table, breakfast. It is the time. And the number one tip for photos I have, regardless of what smartphone you're using, is simply tap the screen to get focus. We were just talking. Pete was here earlier last couple weeks ago, and I was taking some quick pictures, and nobody was in focus because I didn't bother until the very last one where I took my time. Just tap it, and that'll put your pictures.
Autofocus.
Yeah, it really will. It's this amazing, simple, tiny thing.
What
And
about
then
lighting? Because you've got Christmas tree lights, and there's some rooms that are dark, and
So the deal is, a lot of people go see some bright, shiny object and think, oh, let's stand in front of that and then take a picture. That always, in our business, we call that's too hot, or the light's too bright. So it drowns us out when we take the picture. So make sure that the light is way up there and not behind you when you're taking
And don't
a
have your
photograph.
flash on if you don't need it, right?
Yeah, always use natural light. If you can do natural light, and today's iPhones, today's latest Samsungs, Galaxies, they're all really primed for taking great pictures without flashes.
So yesterday you told us download one weather app, and I did. And it told me last night before I went to dinner that it was going to rain. So that was
Did
very
it
helpful.
rain?
Huh. And it rained.
Oh,
You're
okay.
right.
All right.
Okay, so
helps.
what
Yeah, there you
about the, right? So that's helpful.
All right.
So what about the camera apps?
Okay, camera apps are great if they don't take you away from the moment. You want to just capture, a snapshot is about snapping a moment, but this one I love. It's called ColourPop, and it's free to get, and you can download this, and you can take what would be a normal picture and then turn it into a work of art by simply making it black and white, putting a pop of color in one area of the shot so that it becomes an artistic expression of your
So
holiday
you do it
photos.
after you take the photo to enhance it.
Yes,
Cool.
exactly,
Ooh,
and
and
those are really great.
We were talking about lighting. What about turning off the
Turning
flash?
off the flash?
Yeah, leave them off. If you can leave the flash off, turn it off. And the ideal thing is to
flash.
just go find natural light that works the best for you. But photos without a flash always look better.
What about
And
any fun gadgets that you can add?
you can put lenses on phones. If you have an older phone, you might want to get one of those
Yeah, I
lenses that
know.
allow you to do wide angle or zoom in. But the newer phones really have outstanding lenses inside of them. The number one storage one that I would do is Google Photos. They're nailing it. I'm not a big fan of Google, but when it comes to Google Photos, it organizes photos better than any app.
Really?
And that's
you can
half the
type in
battle.
like Christmas
You have all
2017
these great
and it'll
photos, then you
find
can't
all of them.
find
There's
them.
also nothing worse than when you go for that great photo and it says storage full,
Right.
You can't take another
Right.
one.
And is that an app? Google Photo?
Yeah, it is an app where you just go to their website, and it's free. All that's
know
free.
about it.
Kurt, Merry Christmas.
Hey, Merry
Thanks for the
Christmas.
tips.
Great stuff. Appreciate
All
it. All right, President Trump delivering that big, beautiful tax cut for Christmas. What deal will he close on next? We will ask Mark Lauder, the former press secretary for Vice President Pence, next.
And Christmas has gone to the dogs. Pups getting into the holiday spirit with some awesome photos.
Traveling to their holiday destinations this season, that according to AAA. And finally, number one, that is the ranking of the Echo Dot on Amazon's bestseller list for electronics this Christmas.
Thanks, Molly. All right, President Trump finishing up the year with his first major legislative victory, signing historic tax cuts for Americans.
The bottom line is this is the biggest tax cuts and reform in the history of our country. I really do believe we're going to have a lot of bipartisan work done. And maybe we start with infrastructure, because I really believe infrastructure can be bipartisan.
So what deal might the president close on next? The man who might know is Mark Lauder, the former press secretary for Vice President Mike Pence. He joins us now to weigh in. Good morning. Merry Christmas to you.
Morning.
Good morning. Merry Christmas.
I wonder, we heard all about infrastructure, and, Chuck Schumer, a year or so ago during the presidential transition after the campaign, talked a good game about these, New Yorkers who were going to work together, he and the president-elect back then, now president of the United States, on infrastructure, and that this is something New York and a lot of other states need, and yet we've heard very little about it. Can they actually get a deal?
Well, let's hope. I mean, we've heard a lot of talk about bipartisanship, but we haven't seen much of it under President Trump. The Democrats have all been about resist. So this is the opportunity, as well as immigration, and we'll see if they can get it done. I know those are two big priorities for the president coming up early next year.
I mean, Mark, one of the reasons why Democrats are willing to work on infrastructure is because they're always willing to spend our tax dollars. That much we know. But how would you be able to ensure that the infrastructure is laser focused on real priorities this country needs, and it includes the wall, which a lot of Trump supporters believe needs to be a part of it?
Well, I think the wall will probably be more on the immigration side. But when it comes to infrastructure, I mean, what we need to do is get the money to the state and local units of government. They know what they need. I've worked for state and local government almost my entire career. And if you go to any governor or mayor out there, they can tell you what the needs are in their states. So we just need to make sure that the federal government is aligned to partner with them, use innovative strategies like what has been done here in Indiana, where I'm originally from and where I am right now. These are the options we have, and I know the president's going to get it done.
Mark, one way that Democrats may come around is not just bipartisan outreach, but political fear. And we did a segment earlier about 10 Senate Democrats in states that the president carried, and some of them carried big time, whether it's Indiana or West Virginia. Is there going to be a political price for Senate Democrats who talked a good game? Again, like we say on infrastructure, talked a good game. Yeah, I'm in favor of tax cuts. Let me see it. And then they all voted no.
Absolutely. There's going to be a price to pay. If you're Senator Joe Donnelly here in Indiana or Claire McCaskill or many of the others that you highlighted, you're going to have to explain to the American people when they're looking at bigger paychecks, more money in their pockets, why you stood against this president, why you did not come alongside and work with President Trump and tried to take money away from them as opposed to the president who's putting more money in their pockets. It's not a good place for them to be in.
Yeah, but Mark, I mean, Ed raises a good point, but isn't there just as much, if not more, political fear on the other side? If the base of your party, your progressives, have said, we want to resist this president, we want to impeach him, then if you work with him on an infrastructure bill, you're complicit. You're enabling his success, which hurts Democrats further, and you've got potentially a primary challenge. So isn't there even more political pressure to resist this president?
Well, in states like many of the 10 states that you highlighted earlier, the key is not to necessarily be standing away from the president. Your best chance of getting reelected is standing alongside of the president. Even if you're a Democrat, if you're working with the president in areas like tax cuts, like immigration, like infrastructure, that's your opportunity to say that you can represent the best interests of your state. Because at the end of the day, people aren't necessarily voting Democrat, Republican. They're voting what's best for their hometown, their families, their pocketbooks. This president has aligned himself with the best interests of the American people, and so far all we've got from the Democrats is resist.
Mark Lauder, it looks like you got outside the swamp there, maybe spending the holidays with family, friends. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you guys, too.
Good to see you.
All right, coming up, a major shakeup at the FBI. Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, otherwise known as Andy, will reportedly retire after being grilled on the Hill. But Governor Mike Huckabee says he should be fired and prosecuted. He's up next.
Prosecuted. Plus, it's a Festivus for the rest of us.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
Well, Senator Rand Paul has got a lot of problems with you people. He wants to talk about it this year. His tweets are next. He does this every... All right.
Yeah, Merry Christmas Eve. And we've been asking you all to send us your photos this morning at friends@foxnews.com, especially photos of military members deployed or in service during the Christmas season. And they've been pouring in. William sent this photo of his son, Justin, and his West Point classmate. Their Christmas card from their forward operating base in Iraq in 2006. Very cool.
Ashley sent a photo of her son, John, currently serving with the U.S. Army at Fort Riley. Thank you for your service.
And Steve on Twitter says, this is me in 1988. We were on DFRF1 and went to Area J and harvested a Charlie Brown tree. Oh, aptly named. It is very sweet. Very Charlie Brown.
And this song you hear is a favorite of one Governor Mike Huckabee, who looks like he's a little boy there.
Oh, is
That's a little tiny tree.
Little Mike Huckabee.
Cannot get
Little
enough
Mike
of George
Huckabee.
Strait either. Great selection.
He's got the tie. Good morning and Merry Christmas, sir.
Good morning and Merry Christmas to you guys. Yeah, I tried to find some photos that would be utterly humiliating to me when I was a child.
You were smart. You got one from afar. You didn't get any of these photos that are truly embarrassing. We want to talk to you, though, about... there you are. We've got one.
Oh, there you go.
That's an Elvis impression going there. The knees kind of turned in.
Early days as a
Chicken early,
musician.
eh?
We know you love music.
Love it.
Is that one of your favorite things as a kid, to get a guitar?
Well, yeah, it is. And it's back when the days I thought I was going to be the fifth Beatle. And somehow that never really happened. They never called. And I was sitting by the phone most of my childhood waiting on that phone call.
We're
Never
sad
came.
about that, but that was Fox News' gain because you're a wonderful contributor. And I wonder, because when we have a story like this, Andrew McCabe, you got Democrats spinning this as the president's scared about what the FBI has on him. He's trying to force people like Andrew McCabe out. And a lot of people in the mainstream media are not digging into the details, which is that Andrew McCabe's wife got over $500,000 in campaign contributions from people close to the Clintons while, Governor, he was overseeing the quote-unquote investigation of her email server.
Well, and it gets worse. Bruce Orr, who was also in the Justice Department, his wife was working for Fusion GPS, which was financed by the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign. They were the ones who hired Christopher Steele to come up with that phony dossier that may have been, in fact, the basis for the entire Russia investigation. If so, then the investigation was based on a absolutely phony, concocted piece of information. This is just a horrible situation. Add to that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, two lovers inside the FBI texting 10,000 text messages to each other, making me wonder, what were they doing for work? Because it sounds like they were just texting each other on our time as taxpayers. Well, the whole thing is sordid. But let me just quickly say, this is not about the politics of who they were for, who they were against. Here's the issue. Is there a double standard at the Justice Department where if you have a certain political leaning, you get away with things? If you don't, you end up like Mike Flynn and you get charged. If that's the case, then it's not just rotten in Denmark. Something is rotten in D.C., and it has to be cleaned out, fixed, and totally purged.
Well, if that's the case, Governor, and again, a lot of people now call him Andy McCabe because he was referred to as Andy in those texts between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page as the insurance policy they may need should President Trump be elected. As we look further into this, as more exposed, he wants to just retire with pension benefits in 90 days, Andrew McCabe does. But how should folks be held accountable? Should we find that there was a true double standard?
And he's young. He's only 49, so this would, seemingly be an early retirement perhaps for some.
Well, you shouldn't hold people in the enforcement branch to a lesser standard. They ought to be held to a higher standard because, after all, if somebody is going to have the power to investigate and to prosecute me, but they do things that are, in fact, prosecutable, shouldn't they be held to at least the same standard, if not perhaps a higher standard? Of course they should, and most Americans, regardless of their political views, would agree to that. And I don't care if a person's a Democrat or Republican. If they're a Republican and they use their official office as a means to punish their political enemies, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's what it comes down to. Our system totally is based on a blind justice system that does not care what a person's personal views are.
Yeah.
It's either right or it's wrong.
And
it's
Governor,
not left or right.
Democrats have been trying to say that you and the president and others are bashing the FBI. You're bashing the field agent who's trying to prevent a terror attack.
No, that's totally untrue. In fact, it's the rank and file field agents that need to make sure that the leadership at the top of their organization is held accountable. Yes. Otherwise, we demean the work that they do. And look, 99% of the people in the FBI, the rank and file, they're men and women of integrity and honor, and they do their jobs. They do it without trying to put their thumb on the scales. But when they're led by people who are playing political games with the entire agency and with the Constitution, you cannot let that go by.
Of course. Well, Governor, you're a great friend of the show, and so we asked you, as we wrap up 2017, what is Governor Mike Huckabee's naughty and nice list for 2017? Some of the folks we've just been talking about on your naughty list.
Well, my naughty list would include, of course, Andrew McCabe, Bruce Orr, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Chuck and Nancy. I just call them the Chuck and Nancy Show. It's a great cartoon. It's better than the old Roadrunner cartoons. Those are some of the folks on my naughty list. On my nice list, I'm going to put my two dogs who make me laugh every day. I'll put my wife and my family, my 6 grandkids, and of course, I'll put President Trump, and I will even give the Republicans in Congress a little bit of a kudo for finally getting their promises delivered. I think that's a wonderful Christmas gift to America, and almost every American family will start seeing a better paycheck. Regardless of where they are on the income scale. And that's really welcome Christmas news.
I like to see the family there at the top of the list, the nice list there, just above the dogs, just a little bit of a higher billing.
The press secretary was listed there.
Well, hang on. I'm not going to let this go, Governor. And I'm sorry to raise this as a negative topic, but I've got to do it. There are very serious allegations about something else that is rotten in Washington, and I need to ask you, does your daughter bake her own pies? Yes, I want a yes or no answer, sir. That's what I want.
This is Ed Henry in the front row.
Yes, the answer is yes, and I can tell you I've tasted them. They're absolutely wonderful. And she better, let me tell you this, she better be making some for our family at Christmas, or things will get really nasty.
Sarah Sanders, you were on notice. Bake those pies. Your dad's waiting.
Governor, thanks a lot.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And
Merry
turning
Christmas.
that, Merry Christmas to you. And to our headlines now, the New York City Chelsea bomber is now trying to radicalize inmates in prison. Prosecutors say Ahmed Khan Rahimi has been showing other prisoners videos of Osama bin Laden and teaching them to make bombs.
Oh, boy.
Rahimi injured 30 people last year after planting a pressure cooker bomb in a Manhattan dumpster. He is facing life in prison when he is sentenced next month. An ex-con walks into a police station and turns himself in for a brutal murder more than 4 years later. Eugene Villani admitting to this crime all on his own after walking into an NYPD station and confessing to the 2013 stabbing of a homeless man in a Bronx park. Villani, who has a long police record, has now been charged with murder. Senator Rand Paul getting into the Festivus spirit.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
The Kentucky senator airing his own grievances, tweeting, "I want to pause to wish Donald Trump a happy Festivus. We told him to take today off since he airs his grievances on here every day." On that same subject, I have a major happy Festivus airing of grievances with my friend, Senator Harry Reid. We argued about taxes, fought about spending, worked on repatriation together. I helped treat your eye injury. How is it that you never told me about the aliens? Harry! Yeah, well.
That UFO investigation.
Exactly. Very deep stuff. All right. Christmas can't come soon enough for these decked out dogs. Loving owners dressing up their pooches for the holiday on Instagram. Some of these dogs were, well, you know, dressed like reindeer, ready to lead Santa's sleigh. And this one looks like he was, well, helping Santa out in the workshop. Somewhere a little too cool for Christmas. Needed some shades. Yeah. And this one just wanted to go for a sleigh ride. What dog doesn't? If you have dressed your doggy up, please email us some pics. friends@foxnews.com. We want some dog photos. We've got some great baby photos today. We need some dog photos.
I don't know how you help Santa without opposable thumbs. Like, how do you make toys?
Well, Rudolph did it. You got a shiny nose, right? We've heard the song.
Send them in. We love it.
All right, Rick. Rick's got
You
some
don't have
weather.
dogs, Pete.
I know, Rick.
You don't have dogs. I have so many pictures of my dogs in some sort of Christmas attire.
Oh, can we get
Send one in, Rick.
Get them.
Of course.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Friends@foxnews.com. Rick, come on.
I'll mail it in. I'll see if you guys find it in all the emails there. All right, take a look at the weather map, show you what's going on this morning. Everybody get ready for some really cold air. In fact, here's your temperatures across kind of the northern Rockies and the northern plains. That's your actual air temperature, -2 right now in Denver. Factor in a little bit of the wind. It feels like -19. You get the idea. The cold is there, and it is going to be with us for a lot of this coming week. In fact, getting even colder across parts of the far northern tier of the country. Today, across the mid-Atlantic and towards the northeast, get ready for the next snowstorm that's going to be coming on in. And by tonight into tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with a white Christmas across interior sections. Coastal areas, likely just rain. Down across the south, storm moves on through. You'll even see a few snow flurries in northern Alabama. Guys, back to you.
And Santa, Rick, we'll get back to you.
All right.
Yep, and we're going to be talking to the guy who's tracking Santa later on in the show.
absolutely.
By the way. Just letting you know. All right, President Trump taking on a familiar foe. The New York Times, he calls him failing, and how the White House is firing back after a story they say is just not true. Fake news.
In there from anonymous sources is that Haiti had sent 15,000 people to America this year, and the president grumbled, quote, "They all have AIDS," according to one person who attended the meeting and another person who was briefed about it by a different person who was there. We're going to get back to that convoluted sourcing in a minute.
Unnamed sources, once again. Here's another part of the article. Once they had seen the United States, they would never go back to their huts in Africa, reportedly the president had said. Recalled these two officials, once again unnamed, who asked for this anonymity to discuss a sensitive conversation in the Oval Office.
So you've got anonymous sources, largely secondhand, only a few, and as you said, not very disciplined sourcing. And this is why the White House is pushing back so hard, calling it fake news. Later on in the article in the New York Times, it says this: said officials, multiple officials, up to 10, strenuously insisting that Mr. Trump never used the words AIDS or huts to describe people from other countries. Several participants in the meeting told the Times reporters that they did not recall the president using those words and did not think he had. But the two officials who described the comments found them so noteworthy that they relayed them to others at the time.
Right. So they're trying to say they heard it. It sounds like secondhand, that someone in the room told other people after the meeting. And so talking to those people, again, anonymously, they've now deduced that the president definitely said that, even though the White House produced all kinds of cabinet officials and others on the record saying not true.
Understandably, the White House is pushing back very strongly. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders saying, and naming names here, General Kelly, General McMaster, Secretary Tillerson, Secretary Nelson, and all other senior staff actually in the meeting denied these outrageous claims. And it's both sad and telling that the New York Times would print the lies of their anonymous sources anyway.
So here's the takeaway. We don't know who said what to whom and when. It's all anonymously sourced. But the takeaway is the point of the New York Times, and the reason the president calls them failing is they fail to tell the truth so often, is they want to paint the president as a racist. Top center Sunday, New York Times on Christmas Eve. The point is to say the president we have reshaping an immigration agenda does it because he's a racist. And you can see why the White House is so frustrated with what is not news, but is agenda that they feel like is meant to disparage this president at every turn.
And the Times is trying to say that they're adding context to the debate. This is why the president is so vehement about the subject of immigration. This is what he's really saying behind closed doors.
Right? I mean, but the insinuation is the president is a bigot.
With the overall immigration issue as well.
Right.
And you know, continuing action on that. The courts continue to weigh in.
But again, it's not because his motivation is defense of America, love of America, perpetuation of citizenship, allegiance and assimilation, all those things that he talks about. They put that in a box and they say, nah. He talks about AIDS. He talks about huts because he's a racist. It's the same charge.
But you agree if he did say these things, it would be problematic.
Yeah, but I mean, they're pushing back. All the people who are in the room.
But if he did say it, it would be problematic.
I don't think he did. Of course, yes. I mean,
you don't think he did, but if he did,
you don't. He wouldn't want to say these things. I wouldn't say these things. You shouldn't say these things. But he's saying he didn't say these things.
Right.
And then there's the argument made that there's thin evidence that he actually said it, and then others believe that he will say it. And that's the thing. Now everyone's discussing whether or not this happened or not.
And now it's out there. They put it on the front page.
Now it's out there. And now it's out there. Exactly.
All right.
Right.
Well, meanwhile, Santa Claus is coming to town. In other news,
eventually.
Old St. Nick beginning his long journey across the globe. Where is he now? We, of course, checking in with NORAD's command center. Up next,
kids don't.
NORAD tracking Santa as he begins his sleigh journey all across the globe. So, where is he now?
U.S. Air Force General Lori Robinson is the NORAD commanding general. She joins us live from their NORAD command center with an update. You are hunkered down, tracking Santa. From what we're told, you're getting so many calls from kids about his location. We've got a little bit of a delay here, understandable, limited bandwidth. But let us know right now, where is Santa Claus?
So Santa has left the Kuril Islands. He's on his way to Russia. And you can see our folks here that are talking to all the kids from around the world to see where Santa is.
Wow. And tell us, does he use Google Maps or Waze? I always have Apple Maps. There's so many choices.
No, so Santa, you know, he's really a lucky kind of guy. He's got radars that he can use. He's got aircraft that can help him out. But most importantly, he's got Rudolph with that red nose that can guide him around the world and make sure that he delivers the presents on time.
General, I couldn't help but notice that Santa is in Russia. Are you insinuating that Santa Claus is colluding with the Russians?
Yeah, this would be a big deal. This is breaking news.
So let me just tell you, there are wonderful children all around the world. And so Santa's job is to deliver presents to everybody. So far, he's delivered over 525 million presents already, starting only a couple of hours ago.
Of course, we're
just Of course, Santa loves all children.
He's not delivering any subpoenas, anything like that.
Well, no, quickly, when's he coming to America? When can we expect him here in the States?
Yeah, so here's the deal. What we need to make sure is that our children are in bed by 9 because Santa will deliver gifts between 9 and midnight. So what I'd like to tell everybody is make sure kids are in bed by 9. They've put their cookies out for Santa, the carrots out for the reindeer, and maybe a little something extra special for Rudolph with his red nose so that he can continue his journey past the United States.
All right, General, Merry
Rudolph
Christmas.
does all the real work.
That's right.
Merry
Kids, we got to get to bed. You got to get to bed early. That's the news.
That is.
All right, Dan Bongino coming up live next.
The Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe is set to retire in the coming months. President Trump reacted on Twitter and in one tweet said this: FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe is racing the clock to retire with full benefits. 90 days to go?
These people don't think they're doing anything wrong. They think their job, apparently Andrew McCabe thinks, is to protect Democrats.
You shouldn't hold people in the enforcement branch to a lesser standard. They ought to be held to a higher standard.
The Department of Homeland Security is now calling a shooting spree against Pennsylvania officers a terror attack. This as they confirm chain migration let the suspect into the country.
Happy holidays to all the soldiers and our families and our great DH civilians in the United States Army throughout the world. It's an absolute privilege to be here with you and all these great soldiers. These are our freedom providers. We can never take our freedom for granted.
$640 million in your vault.
Let's be very clear. Die Hard is a great Christmas movie.
Army claiming victory in the Armed Forces Bowl. Thanks to teamwork you will only see from the West Point Cadets.
Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad. Feliz Navidad.
Well, I guess one of our presents to the audience is that you get to be DJ today on Christmas Eve. Happy Christmas Eve. You picked the music. And in fact, William from Connecticut said he wanted to hear Feliz Navidad.
William. We're somewhere Gavina, our wonderful
she's probably dancing right now. I can see her.
You know,
she's in a red leather back there.
I think she moosed up your hair a little bit.
She did. A little extra for me today. It's Christmas Eve, and we're excited to be here on Fox and Friends on this Sunday. Molly Lon, great to have you here.
Yes, wonderful to be
Beautiful
here.
Green dress. Love it. Very festive.
And that's probably it's all right. I'm used to it. And we've been asking you, send in your photos. The dogs who are dressing up, the kids, more important than the dogs. Ani sends this shot of her granddaughters under their. I just want to make that clear. Under their decorated tree with, yes, a nativity scene, and they just look beautiful.
And they do. Cool. They look like they're behaving. Donna shares this one of her finished tree. The dog, Dover, waiting for Santa and the presents. That's the spot to wait. You want to get her spilling right there.
Before he did that, he was drinking out of the water at the bottom of the tree, no doubt. That becomes the drinking dish for dogs across America.
Right out.
That's right. And this from JJ, a photo of his son deployed in Iraq. Good man. Thank you for his service. We've been asking you all. Keep sending in your emails of really anything related to Christmas, but we're looking for military members or deployed soldiers, Marines, anybody. Send it in. friends@foxnews.com.
Some of our brave men and women serving all around the world, and we salute them not just around the holidays, all year round. But I think it's important to connect it to the big story this morning, which is the FBI, because we also have a lot of brave men and women who work in the FBI. They work to keep us safe. They're working on counter-terror missions now. They're fighting crime literally in the streets of America every day. But there's a problem right now with the leadership at the FBI, and that is something that the president's been tweeting about all morning. We've been talking about it.
Very much so. President tweeting this. He said yesterday, how can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with Leakin James Comey, of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for her wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during an investigation? So the president, as he often does, raising questions about folks with political ties that looked to be helping his opponent. If you look at the double standard of how she was treated in that investigation with her emails and it looks like, based on things we've seen, including text messages, trying to take down.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack here, but really the big breaking news regarding Andrew McCabe is that he could potentially be retiring in just a couple of months. The Washington Post initially breaking that he was considering that retirement when his benefits come in. He also had a very busy week up on Capitol Hill, spending a lot of time behind closed doors, testifying before.
Getting grilled.
Yes, getting grilled.
And who is he? I mean, that's the big question. Who is Andrew McCabe? We've seen all these various officials at the FBI and Justice go by. Okay, this is the number 2 at the FBI under James Comey, stays on now under Christopher Wray. And the important point is that his wife takes in over $500,000 in campaign money when she was running for the state Senate in Virginia back in 2015. You see him there campaigning with her. And as this has come out with the text messages involving other FBI people, they're human beings. They are allowed to have political views. This is a free country. You should be able to say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. But the question is, does it bleed into your work? Are you doing fair, impartial investigations? So my point about his wife is not that she was running for office, but that she got over $500,000 in campaign money from a PAC associated with Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic governor of Virginia, who is very close to the Clintons. What happens after that race? Andrew McCabe is overseeing the FBI investigation of her email server. Does that not seem a little odd?
Absolutely. And she bleach bits, deleted emails to hide them, and then we don't know how forthcoming she really was in interviews because she was never under oath. She said she forgot so much of what it was, and that she gets exonerated for that 2 months. James Comey writes it 2 months before the exoneration. All of it stinks, and a lot of people call him Andy McCabe now because he was referred to in those text messages from Peter Strzok as we're talking about potentially an insurance policy.
And he's under significant pressure.
Meeting in Andy's office.
Talking a lot about Andrew McCabe.
If President Trump gets elected, think about if you connect a few of those dots, how rotten it really looks. That's why it matters to so many people.
And the president also weighing in on this.
That's right. The pension matters on this too. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, he tweeting, FBI Director Andrew McCabe is racing the clock to retire with full benefits. 90 days to go.
Because that Washington Post story said that basically there had been speculation in Washington, it just came from there, obviously, that after these 2 sessions where he was grilled, Andrew McCabe, by 2 different House committees for over 7 hours each time about what he knew about the dossier, all kinds of other things we can get into, that he might be trying to get out the door. But now the Washington Post is saying, well, he wants to run out the clock to the spring because then he gets the full pension. And that's what the president is jumping on. And the other thing here is what Mike Huckabee said last hour. He said, the bottom line is the president is under investigation. We can't leave that out. The special counsel is looking at why did the president fire James Comey? What is there? Does it connect back to the Russia investigation? Well, Mike Huckabee is saying, wait a second, there's a double standard.
This is not about the politics of who they were for, who they were against. Here's the issue. Is there a double standard at the Justice Department where if you have a certain political leaning, you get away with things? If you don't, you end up like Mike Flynn and you get charged. If that's the case, then it's not just rotten in Denmark. Something is rotten in D.C., and it has to be cleaned out, fixed, and totally purged.
The big question will be how much the so-called mainstream media covers this. If you open the New York Times this morning, it's nowhere in the print edition. There's a bunch of other stuff on the cover, but buried online is this story where it refers to Andrew McCabe as highly intelligent, beyond reproach. He has so much respect because he's been standing up against Donald Trump. And this reporter, Adam Goldman, I don't know him, but I read his Twitter feed this morning, and it reads like a standard Democrat. Whoa. So the frustrating part is you don't feel like you're getting the straight story, and it almost takes the president's tweets and some truth tellers to actually investigative reporters like Sarah Carter, who's been on this and has revealed details that have
said
come
there was
true.
going to be a shakeup coming too.
Here comes the shakeup.
And look, we should say the Democratic side. The Democrats are saying though that the reason why some of these officials are leaving is that there's political pressure from the president. The pushback from the president's side is no, they're leaving on their own because they've got something to hide. We're going to see. This stuff's coming out.
And there's a long list of shifting things happening there at the FBI. But turning now to your headlines, the Department of Homeland Security is now calling a shooting spree against Pennsylvania officers a terror attack. This as they confirm chain migration let that suspect into the country. Egyptian national Ahmed Amin Al-Mafdi, who arrived here on a family visa, was shot dead by police after injuring a state trooper in a gunfight Friday. His family telling ABC News that he was, quote, a chicken, but not a terrorist. Earlier this month, another man who came into the U.S. through chain migration tried to set up a bomb in a New York City subway. Miss America's CEO and 2 top executives now calling it quits. This after sexist and degrading emails about former contestants were made public. A majority of those emails written by CEO Sam Haskell. 2013 winner Mallory Hagan was among those who were criticized. She joined dozens of former Miss Americas in signing a petition asking the leadership to step down. First, he turned California into a sanctuary state. Now Governor Jerry Brown has a Christmas present for President Trump, pardoning 132 people, including a pair of illegal immigrants who committed crimes while here in the U.S. Both men from Cambodia were picked up in immigration sweeps in October. One has been convicted for stealing a car, the other on a weapons charge. And the Baltimore Ravens inching closer to a playoff berth with a win over the Colts.
Minutes
for the Ravens. Flacco throwing outside, wide open in the touchdown. Max Williams.
Baltimore able to hold off a late game push from Indianapolis, winning 23-16. And to the NFC, the Minnesota Vikings earning their first shutout in nearly a quarter century. That team beating the Green Bay Packers 16-0 on the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. And those are your headlines.
I'm telling you, my no kneeling Minnesota Vikings are 12-3, and the Super Bowl is in Minnesota this year. Don't forget that.
All right.
Could be a gift for me.
Yeah.
On the question we're asking, we talk about gifts. How many gifts should you be giving to your kids? There's a psychologist who says 4 is the magic number.
This is a big debate that I think happens in a lot of people's households. So this psychologist is saying, of the 4 gifts that you give, you should give one that the kids want, one that the kid needs, one that
there's your socks
can read. There you go, and one that is sort of emblematic of generosity. And I think as a parent, you do have that balance. You want to give so much because you love your